Hey everyone, happy Thursday. Cool, should we get started on blockers? See if I can find the right tab to show. Cool, so the enabling build logs is still progressing nicely. So it's been enabled on GitLab org. We've got the change issue up for GitLab.com as well. So still hopefully on track for 13.5.
Yeah, it's enabled on wgitlab.com as well.
Oh, great.
This morning.
Cool. So this next one. Mapping pods to cloud native for cloud native. I've seen there's still some comments going on this one. I think it's going to be for 13.5, but I don't think it's specifically prioritized for that. Jav, have you had any involvement on this one?
I've been following the issue and talking to Jason about it. It sounds like it's full steam ahead. I don't know if there was a commitment though.
Cool. Is that one still blocking us in the foreseeable future, or do we have enough of the workarounds?
We have, I mean, right now we definitely have enough work to do, but pretty soon we're going to run out of work, which is funny to say, but as soon as, because Skarbek is working on the Git SSH stuff in parallel to me working on the multi-cluster stuff, and both of these wrap up, then we are going to plow forward and want to migrate, probably API next or web even. And without the service mapping, we can't do that. We're also sort of blocked in a way right now with Action Cable because we like to keep that traffic separated from Git HTTPS. And without the service mapping, we can't do that.
Okay, good to know. We've got a new blocker.
Sorry. I find that statement a bit hard to believe looking at the epic and the number of issues in the epic and all the epics actually related to the work you're doing. Do you mean that you're going to run out of the next item to migrate?
No, I mean, we're going to, as soon as, like without this, we can't go past Git HTTPS or Git SSH.
Right, which is the, I think like the next item that we are looking at, but like I'm looking at the Kubernetes epics.
Mm-hmm.
There is a lot of work there.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the statement doesn't match what I'm seeing.
No, I was referring to work related to migrating services. You know, like, I mean, of course, there's always other work we can do, and there's definitely work, unrelated to migrating services that we can do as well.
Okay, sorry, I need to be clear. This is a recording call that is going to be public as well. Like looking at the epic, there is a lot of work. So migration work, you mean, is going to be paused. Okay, that makes sense. Thanks.
Awesome. And we've got a new blocker, Prometheus metrics. So this one is still being discussed. There's no plan for this yet.
Yeah, the current solution with our virtual machines is using MTail as a separate service unrelated to the GitLab shell. Like the GitLab shell does not expose any sort of metrics at all. So both our Omnibus and our Helm charts do not include anything for customers to monitor the GitLab shell. I think we should have something in place. Whether we decide to try to implement a stopgap solution, which would be adding MTail as a sidecar container, or if we attempt to wait for the maintainers of GitLab shell to build us something, we probably should decide that soon to determine whether or not this is a blocker or if this is something we want to tackle ourselves. I lean towards the latter just because it's less work for me, but that also enables us to have something shippable to customers, which is currently not the case. But if we really want to get this migrated into production, we should probably tackle this and try to do the stopgap solution. So I'm open for opinions on this one.
Stopgap solution is something we created in 2016, Jarv? Probably 16, because we were waiting for GitLab shell to get what it needs. And I think this is the time where we're going to stop using the stopgap solutions.
Yeah,
Okay.
do you know yet, Skarbek, how much our current general service metrics depend on these MTail metrics? I haven't looked myself.
Apparently not that much. Ben, when I first picked up the Git SSH work, I noted that we didn't have any metrics, and Ben the next day fixed MTail because it had been working for a very long time. So I don't think we rely on it in any way, shape, or form, but at least we're now gathering new data that we didn't have in the past 2 years.
In the past 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, I would, sorry. Go ahead.
The format of the logs were changed at some point in time, and we weren't gathering those metrics via MTail, and Ben just fixed that.
I mean, if we have no alerts tied to these metrics and no dashboards tied to these metrics other than one-off dashboards that people have created,
yeah,
that could be an argument for plowing forward. I mean, it's at least probably no worse off than what we have now, and we have log visibility through Elastic.
I still need to create an issue overall to discuss metric collection or monitoring in general, but I think starting here would be a good point to figure out how to move forward.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
But that still doesn't mean that we should ensure that the work is done in GitLab shell to fix this, right? At a certain point.
Accurate.
It doesn't have to be right now.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I think we should treat it as a Kubernetes blocker because, well, it is, but we are also going to plow forward because we are migrating the current state, which is things are not logged.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Cool. And then the cross-AZ stuff we'll chat about, I guess, in a second, unless you want to talk about any bits before the demo.
No, we can cover that in the demo.
Awesome. And then Pages, I think, continues on.
Yeah, there is currently a rollout happening in production. I think we rolled out 20% of projects are now being served from the Zip implementation. So there is quite a lot of progress and the teams are very much on top of it.
Great, that's good. I was wondering with that on the Prometheus metrics on GitLab shell, do we know if there are any other issues like that we've opened in the past that we will get caught out by when we start migrating other things?
The only other one that we opened up so far was logging, and that's been merged into our Helm chart. It's just a matter of reconfiguring that. Outside of that, I need to do an investigation into our log details because we're going to start mixing structured and non-structured logs instead of Elasticsearch. So I need to do an analysis on that. And then lastly would be the performance for GitLab shell, which I've created an issue for and merge request for and subsequently got merged. But I'm hoping that's the last thing, unless Jarb could think of something off the top of his head.
Cool. Okay.
I am writing a readiness review, so hopefully that also is able to gather some more information from other people when they get a chance to review it. I'm still trying to finish that up before I send it to other people for further comment.
Great. Sounds good. So, Jav, over to you.
Cool, let me just share my screen. So I don't think we're going to do any kind of like live demo because everything is set up and we're deploying to staging now. What I can show you is kind of what it looks like. First, I'll show you the auto-deploy pipeline. We're auto-deploying to the zonal clusters now in staging. Soon we'll be doing this in production, maybe even today, because the configuration is almost ready for production. So this is what it looks like. We now have 4 deployments. We have the zonal clusters here, and then we have the regional cluster. We chose this name, like basically environment-zone name. For configuration, it's a bit crazier. Now for the configuration, we have actually production already. So this is the GitLab Helm files project. You can see, wow, there's like a lot of jobs now, but this is just the way it is because GitLab Helm files covers for configuration all of the environments. We have zonal clusters as well for pre-prod. I'm thinking after we get this all configured through production, we'll probably remove the pre-prod zonal clusters. It seems like a waste of money if we can always spin them up later if we want to, but I think staging gives us what we need. So we'll probably get rid of these pre-prod ones, but you can see like we have all the production, dry runs, and then we have the apply. Still for configuration, we manually apply production. So now you have four jobs that you need to apply, which is kind of like not as nice. But I don't know, like I think Skarbek, we should probably converge towards having these production jobs run automatically if we can set like some gating jobs to just make sure everything is working okay. I think we'll get there. Logs. Oh, Maren, do you just want to say your question?
No, go forward.
Okay, fine.
I'll ask you.
Sure. So logs. For now, we don't really have a label in the log that tells you what zone or what region you're in. We do have the cluster ID, which you can see here as soon as this loads. So you have these built-in, or these, basically this is extracted from the log that was parsed, and it shows you the Kubernetes host, which does give you like the actual cluster, which from there you can infer what the zone is. But that's like, so you can see here we have Git HTTPS logs on staging, and they're coming in on all 3 zones, B, C, and D. We don't have any Git HTTPS traffic on the regional cluster. We disabled that yesterday. So all Git HTTPS traffic is coming in through the zonal clusters. I'll start, I think that's pretty much it. So I'll just go through the questions. Maren, do you want to start?
Yes. So auto-deploy, could you go back to that job?
Mm-hmm.
So what happens when one of those jobs fails?
The trigger will fail. So it will stop the pipeline.
So what happens if, like time-wise, we have non-prod, sorry, this is dry run and non-prod deploy. Okay, this is staging.
Yeah, because we don't have production yet.
Right. So what happens when 4 of them deploy and 1 doesn't, fails for whatever reason? What kind of tools will we have at our disposal to take action? How do we take out the cluster out of?
Our tool will be the retry button. That's the first tool we have, which we all know so well.
We're chatting here, right? Because we probably need to do some additional actions. It's fine for now, but it's more about what happens when you go on a vacation and Skarbek is not online, and I don't know how to do anything else apart from click the button.
Sure, yeah. Retry is a pro tip for the people watching the recording. Yeah, I think it's similar to what we have now, which is most of the reasons for failures have been, outside of like intermittent failures that go away with a retry, have been the image tag not being available. And for those, we typically have to dig in to understand why. And it could be like an upstream CNG failure that we didn't catch. And then we often have to like redeploy. I don't think to date there hasn't been any failure that like we've had to manually go in and fix and then continue. But I guess it's possible. I guess your point here is that our failures are now like the chance of failure is like multiplied by 4 now, and it's probably going to happen, or we're going to have some weird thing in one zone and not in another zone. I guess the good part is that the configuration for the zones are absolutely identical. Like there's no, in fact, it's not even possible right now to like make per zone config differences because we just don't need to. So I don't anticipate any config drift between the zones, but it's always the possibility that there'll be problems. Maybe there is a use case for continuing when there is a zone failure, right? Like, I don't know.
If one zone is offline, you just lose one fourth of the capacity, but you should be able to go ahead. Otherwise, it makes no sense. You had 4th zone because you want to divide by 4 the chance of having an outage. But if just one of them is enough for blocking everything, you're just having 4 points of failure. And so it's you're getting the opposite out of what you want to have.
Right, but those are extremes, right? Like you have success and failure. Success, all of them are working, all of that is fine. Failure of one, okay, one is down, you have others. I'm more concerned about the in-betweens. Those are the more dangerous, where something is being reported as healthy, but it's actually not working, spiking errors left and right. So maybe the pipeline passed, everything passed, but we have a failure in one region. What kind of tool do I have or you have at your disposal to just shut off traffic from one of those?
I think what we need to have are our production checks need to be targeted towards a zone somehow. We don't really have that capability right now. These aren't separate stages. They're zones, and the only way you differentiate metrics is by the cluster name. So maybe we could have a check per zone. That would be nice. But this isn't really, I mean, I don't consider this being done for availability as much as cost right now, at least. And I think like there's an argument to be made if there is a zonal outage, wouldn't we probably not want to do deploys anyway? I could see cases where we might need to, but in that situation, I think we would probably wait until the zonal outage was cleared before we continue.
Okay,
deploys.
Well, maybe I'm misunderstanding something. I agree with you, like this is not done for availability. We never planned that, but we are introducing this, and it actually has a option of introducing lack of availability because of an unknown issue, right? Like something is going to happen. Your remark about waiting out something, well, again, this is a very complex system, and it doesn't have to be a zonal outage to have issues. It can be Kubernetes upgrade gone wrong for some reason. It could be application deployment failing mid-deploy. And I know that Helm will roll back release, but say it rolls back halfway, which I've seen myself, right? Like it leaves this undefined state. I'm not saying that we need to like build out now like all bells and whistles, but I'm concerned that we might need just a kill switch, if nothing else. If something really goes wrong, shut off traffic from one zone.
What we could do, or what we could consider doing is, the first thing you would do is you would drain and put the zonal endpointed maintenance on HA proxy. And then what we could do is, as a pre-step to the deploy, we could see if the zone is in maintenance. And if it is, similar to what we do for Canary, we could skip it. I'll open up an issue for that. I think that's a pretty easy thing for us to do. Then in that way, it is very similar to Canary.
Awesome. No, that's perfect. That's all I want. Just some level of confidence that we have control.
I have a question as well. If you're done, Marin.
With this section, yes.
Yeah. So my question here is, so what we are doing, when we started the Kubernetes thing, it was just 1 or 2 satellite services, now we are migrating more and more stuff. So what happens here is that basically we upgrade Helm, we don't change configuration, actually, we just change the image version and let Helm roll everything out. So what will this look like when everything will be migrated to Kubernetes? Because we are doing a lot of work in terms of understanding if something is wrong mid-deploy and trying to roll back, and how does it ties into this? Because we are really thinking about the old deployer when we have Git first and then the other things, and we do rollout in batches, which is it's the same thing we can do with Kubernetes, right? But how can we plug something in between without writing an operator, for instance?
Yeah, okay. Outside of writing an operator, what's happening here with at least the current configuration is that this bottom job contains everything for Sidekick, registry, mailroom, and then other like stuff that like is unrelated to GitLab. And then for these three clusters, we only have Git HTTPS. Eventually we'll have Git HTTPS, Git SSH, web, and API, because those are the high bandwidth services. We might also have registry. We have to decide to do that still. We could reorder these so that, you know, like maybe we would upgrade like one of these zones first, like just do Git, API, web, registry first, do some checks, and then we would upgrade the rest. Is that what you're thinking about or not? I mean, but it is sort of like
yes,
more granular control over what is getting deployed.
So this is kind of what I was thinking about, but there's also other things. For instance, we deploy GitLab first. So when we will have everything on Kubernetes, how will we do this? So will the chart take care of this? And also in the current work with Ansible, we have the granularity of deploying each service, 10% of it, and then we move on, and then we move on. And we are already working on it in baking a check in between, right? So 10% check status, other 10% check status without baking time, just check. Basically, when you are at 20%, you already have some traffic for the first 10%, and the second 20 is just right now back into the load balancer. So over time, you will get the metrics of the mixed deployment, right?
Yeah.
Here, at least I'm not aware how to do this, because with a deployment, you can put out the rollout strategy. So you can say, yeah, just drop down 25% and do the magic. But I mean, we can do something in parallel, but it's kind of tricky, right? Because you have to understand where you are in the process. Maybe you can just inspect Kubernetes and eventually roll it back. So that's my question.
Well, I think it's going to be maybe not as nice as what we're thinking of with Ansible with like 10% batches, but we'll be able to at least do checks after these zonal deploys, which we'll call like waves or whatever. Like we'll have wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, and you'll have 3 checkpoints. Maybe we'll add another regional. What I imagine is that we'll have like another regional cluster in a different region at some point.
Okay.
And it could be that we do this like one region at a time.
Okay. So we do.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's basically a quarter of the fleet, because you start with one and check and.
But until then, I think that's our best option. And the way I think it'll work with deployer is that we'll have a release tools pipeline that will trigger an Ansible pipeline for Gitly. I have a sneaky suspicion that we're probably going to always have Omnibus for the purpose of validation. Like maybe we'll have like a very tiny Omnibus fleet for GitLab.com just because so we can dog food. Maybe not. And then following that, then we'll trigger Kubernetes deployment from the release tools pipeline.
Yeah, it will also give us more control over migration, because we can still do the database migration box and things like that. But so now I'm going to change question, but it's still based on this. So how can a customer do a zero downtime deployment with the Helm chart if we ourselves would not do it with the Helm chart? So because I'm expecting, because we support zero downtime deployment with Omnibus, and I kind of expect that if someone wants to run things on Kubernetes, we'll have the same.
For now, this is not our concern. As in, at this moment in time, I'm more concerned about ensuring that we are in a state where we have control, where we have GitLab.com figured out. The zero downtime deployment is something distribution will have to do, and they'll have to come to us for expertise and help. I'm concerned. The reason why I'm saying this is I am concerned with the enormous level of complexity of what we have here right now to introduce yet another variable that is over environments we have no insight or control of.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, I was just thinking that everything here screams to me that we actually need an operator. Because
we knew that from the start, but then the problem is operator means delaying things even further.
Yeah, sure.
And you see how much work we did as an application to actually get to this stage, right? If we waited for an operator, we would automate something that we don't know what we are automating.
Yeah, good point.
Although this conversation between you and Jarv actually makes me think that we have to write this down. We have to write these thoughts down, these options down. And I think after, Jarv, after you finish, Jarv and Skarbek, I guess, after you finish this zonal and regional zonal cluster rollout, and you wrap up the Git traffic migration prior to doing web and API fleet, we have to sit down and write out a blueprint of what we actually currently have, an architecture overview. That is going to be a mess. And then options of how we can address some of these items that you raised. So I like this fact that we now, with zonal clusters, don't have to think too much about Helm level, right? Like if it's only Helm level, that would be a mess. We have options of just introducing new clusters, right? Like add 3 more clusters, deploy to them, get them out. That sounds a bit old fashioned, but it is what it is. So, but I think we need to have this written down. I'm struggling myself to follow complexity. I don't really know how all of you are following it.
Okay.
Yeah, my next item is configuration window that you showed. Something like kind of stuck there with me, like there is no play all button for some reason. Is it because it's a mix between manual and?
I don't know.
Yeah, we should check that, because that now it's only 4 jobs, but it'll be 5 jobs, and right, like it's annoying that we have that.
Yeah.
Are they allowed to fail? Because maybe it's the reason why there's no play. Or I don't remember. There are 2 options. One is that if they're allowed to fail, the other one could be that there are other jobs that are not manual in the stage.
Yeah, I think we'll just get rid of the manual play. I think we'll just adopt the same production check that we have for the other pipeline, and we'll just use it here. We already have QA on this pipeline as well. So, wait, do we have QA on this pipeline, Skarbek? I thought we did.
Not for Autodeploy, only for.
Oh no, we have it. Yeah, we have it for GitLab com configuration changes, but not GitLab home files. I don't know whether QA really makes sense for this. I mean, there are not many things you can do here that's going to affect the application.
Yeah.
Except doing something that interferes with, other namespaces, I guess. I don't know.
I mean, maybe if anything, add a new stage and put production after all the rest of these potentially.
Yeah, I still kind of like doing the production check because what you don't want to do is make a configuration change when there's an ongoing incident, even if the incident has nothing to do with what you're changing. So maybe for that reason alone, it'd be good to add the production check and then we can just automatically apply prod. And then your last comment here, Marin, about logs.
Yes, I was looking at the logs. So we now have this Kubernetes host and people need to figure out which region things are coming from. I know we discussed all of this, but do we have any plans on writing some smaller go-through training sessions with SREs, well, actually everyone. It's not only SREs, because the more we move, the more people will have to depend on it. And now that we have 4 different clusters, it'll become really important that we can explain where do you go to look things, especially SREs on call.
Yeah, I think the really nicest thing about this is that we now have this container image. So for every log line, you get to see what version was running when the log was emitted. That's nice. There's nothing unique here for zonal clusters. I mean, these fields have remained the same, but I think as we move more services into Kubernetes, I don't know, we probably could use some logging, better logging documentation, tutorials.
So again, I think I'm going to make a judgment call here from my perspective and ask Amy and you and Skarbek, well, actually everyone in the team. At minimum, we need a scalability team to know this. At minimum. If they can't figure this thing out themselves, then we are, well, in a big problem. But it's not only about them, it's about everyone else. If it means that we need to pause the migration for a month to actually get some hands-on knowledge from everyone else, we have to do that. Like, this is, again, becoming really, really complex. And we haven't, knock on wood, haven't had any real big problems, but 4 clusters now, chances are much higher.
Yeah, it would be really nice if we had a zone or region label, because I think like you can see it here in the host, but this actually has the entire host and not just the part that you probably want. So you can't like break down status codes by zone easily, which is something we may want to do.
And we still have that problem with our metrics as well, correct?
Well, at least metrics you can break down by cluster. So you have that option. Yeah, there's no cluster name here.
There's the, at the, what is the name of this? At the Elasticsearch level, I think we have the ability to filter by the beginning of some field. So probably we can filter by GK, GSTG, US, East 1.
Yeah.
And you have everything. Then you can do the zone.
Yeah, but for visualizations, it's super nice just to have like one when you're doing sub charts. You know, it's nice to have.
And why don't we have this?
Because
this gets out of the box and the one has to be okay.
So this stuff is all extracted from the log file that it's reading. So
okay, so log file parsing.
Yeah, it's not an elegant solution.
And what are we using for this?
Fluentd.
Okay.
So it's just Fluentd. So you have a stateful set that's run 1 pod per node, and then you have var log containers, and then you have a bunch of log files, and then these fields are extracted from the name of the log file using a regex or something. Like it's
and it doesn't have the grokking ability that you have with Logstash, when you can say search for this, and this is a composite field, and please explode it and generate those other fields out of it.
Yeah, maybe we can figure something out here. I'll take a look. I'll open up an issue for that. Cool. Amy.
Yeah, so we mentioned this bit yesterday, but just also like slightly different focus on somewhere we need to help people know why zonal and regional clusters are different, and so that when they have a new service, they know where to put that thing.
So I guess my answer to that is that I'm going to add this to the architecture overview for Kubernetes on the handbook and just put that we're using the zonal clusters for high bandwidth services for now until we decide otherwise.
Cool. Okay. That sounds
cool. Okay, that's it for my part. Skybeck, did you have something you'd like to demo?
No, it's not working, so I don't have anything to demo, but I do have a conversation piece. The plan for
is not working, and we can look together and see if we can debug it.
Well, I know exactly what's wrong, actually.
Okay, well then that's easy.
But I could share it if you are still curious.
I'm always curious, but
okay.
You have an item on the agenda. Let's go through that first.
Well, I'll share my screen because this will take a really quick, short time. So inside of our pipeline, I'm trying to deploy the GitLab shell to staging, and currently it is not working for Zone C. We could see that the deployment is simply not ready. If I switch over to my shell, this one, and big in the font, we could see that the problem is related to the, hello. The problem is related to the fact that it cannot pull our certificates image for some reason. And I did a get earlier. Of course, you're not found. What's this called? GitLab shell. Maybe it's just GitLab shell. Yeah, so we have one that's constantly an image pull back off. If I do a describe on this, or a get on this, key control get pod. The one thing that we appear to be missing, which I thought I fixed, was that we pull our images from the dev registry. As you can see that we have our image defined as the dev registry, but the pull secret is missing. If I just do a search for pull, we should see the word pull image or pull credentials or something to that effect, and that's not listed. So I thought I fixed this, but it's not working. So this is an example
for one zone, but not the other zones.
So here's the situation. We run a configuration that allows us to, it's called the pull policy. So if not present right here, which means this image that we're attempting to pull has never been pulled on this particular node before.
Yeah. I've run into this before.
Yeah, so what's happened is that we've pulled this image from a different release that has that pull configuration that provides the credentials to the dev registry. For some reason, this is missing on the zonal cluster, which means this is actually missing inside of our GitLab configuration, inside of our Helm configuration somewhere. I thought I had fixed this, but maybe something got reverted because there's a massive rebase I did and I screwed things up a little bit. But anyways, so I know what's wrong. I just need to fix it. But this is a prime example of where we have a zonal failure where US1C is not going to get this particular configuration. So here's another example of a situation where this would probably be like where we would maybe drain C and go somewhere with it. But
this is a problem for all zones, because as soon as you spin up a new node in the node pool, you're going to have the same problem in any zone. So
yeah, so this is going to be the next thing after this meeting. But anyways, so the item I wanted to talk about was a plan for catch NFS. I had a discussion with Amy yesterday about this, and I think moving forward, we have, I think, 16-ish queues that are blocked. Some of them that we know we're waiting on build traces, some we know that we're waiting on pages, and there's 3 of them that we don't really know why they're blocked on us. And it looks like the dev teams that are pulling these issues are trying to figure that out. So I think my plan of action here is take those to be determined items and push them into catch NFS to help the investigation as necessary. And I'm wondering if anyone had any opinions or any thoughts about proceeding forward with this task, just to help engineers with the work.
Well, there is one simple thing that we can start off with, which is ensure that you're engaged with them when they're working on it.
Yeah, they pinged me on one issue and I haven't followed up yet, but I do intend on helping them as necessary. But
so yeah, sure, just like whatever is necessary to help them out to figure this one out, sure, like we can leave it running there. I don't think it costs us much, right?
No, this is something we could do in parallel with everything else without negatively impacting anything. It's just a matter of taking the bit of time to accomplish that work.
Cool. But yeah, since we're not going to be using, since we've now, catch NFS is empty, right? Because we've migrated.
Correct. It's
REST
an
off, so
empty
yeah,
set
it
of
doesn't
nodes
seem
that
like-
don't do anything.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a bad idea to just run this stuff.
Okay, that's all I had.
I mean, I see that there is a lot of movement on that epic. As in a lot of people are commenting and editing stuff around, which means there is action.
Yeah, so it's definitely got visibility.
Yeah.
I think they just need a little bit of help identifying what our end goal here is, because I may not have made it clear that, you know, this is shared storage that we're eyeing, that we're concentrating our efforts on. And it sounds like there's a little bit of confusion as to whether or not it's dependent on shared storage or whether it's dependent on the fact that it just needs to write data to disk temporarily. So
why not write that down in the epic? Like just write it down in the comment for people who are already participating to let them know, hey, I can help this way. And this is the thing I'm actually talking about. I'm here, G Delivery, to answer any question for any help that you need.
I will certainly do that.
Someone said at the beginning of this call that we don't have many issues to work on. Sorry, Jar, I had to.
Cool. Is there anything else anyone wants to go through today? No? Okay, great. Good to chat to you all. Enjoy the rest of your Thursdays.
Thanks, everyone. Awesome work.